Hello, everyone. My name's Dutch. I'm an addict. And how they can expect you to stay the fuck up here for over 2 hours when you got to piss like a racehorse is out of my mind. Look, when you're over 60, you never pass a bathroom. But to stay up here, that's torture. Staying up here before the... Wasn't it? Before the clean time countdown, it's like, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? That's, and the anxiety's building and you got to piss, but you don't want to tell nobody because you're sitting up here, you can't leave. Fuck it, I left. I got a lot of mixed emotions tonight. I've been pretty jacked up for a couple days. And I didn't know whether I should come up here or not to this thing. I have two daughters, one 34 and one 38. They just got diagnosed with the BRCA gene, and they have to get a double mastectomy and their ovaries out immediately. And there's like no time to adjust your sails to the wind. You know what I mean? It's like I'm pretty good at dancing on my feet, and I always have in recovery, but this is like... So, I mean, what it does, it shows me I need more work. I need to get stronger, get better. That God's not done with me yet. And I don't care, like how much time you got. It's how you live. And I know, like, 2 days ago I was rocked. Yesterday I was rocked, and today it's better. So it's the pain's moving. And the pain is that I can't take away their pain. And have daddy fix. It just doesn't, I'm powerless. And then another thing, I want to take a moment, because one of the persons, and a long friend of mine, Bobby B, was supposed to be up here and speak on the basic text. And I just found out that they took 1.5 liters of liquids out of his lungs, and they're checking for malignancy. So I'd like to have a moment of silence for Bobby before I start. Okay. My story with having to do with history. I'm an East Coast guy. I'm a street person, East Coast guy. And I found a home in Narcotics Anonymous. And what happened to me, I was on a methadone program, and this guy came to me and he said, "Do you want to go away to rehab?" And I said, "Nah, I'm pretty cool here," because they started us on 160 milligrams. Back in 1971. Why the fuck would I want to leave? And he said, "Well, would they have girls there?" I said, "That's cool. I'm cool here." Because, if it came between drugs or sex lost. And then he kept coming around. I said, "All right, I'll try it." And he took me to this place, and it had a long driveway. I can name the name. It was Eagleville Hospital. And what it used to be a tuberculosis ward that they were going to open up a wing and experiment on addicts. And this was 1971. And he dropped me off at the end of the driveway on the street. And he says, "I'm going to give you a tip." "Oh, yeah? What's that?" He says, "All you got to do is be honest." Everything I did was a secret. Everything I did was illegal. Every drug I took was illegal. I didn't know how to be honest. And so I went up there, and they had to process you. And the nurse took a look at me, and she put her arms around me, and she kissed me on the cheek. And I could feel the tears coming down my face. Because I am not the type of person, never was, to show emotion. I'd push you away before I let you see me vulnerable. And I didn't know what to do. And I had never walked off 160 milligrams, and I didn't know what to expect, but it took me 42 weeks. And I can remember my first 12 days in the bathroom on the cold tiles. And I didn't know what to expect, because I had never really done anything like that. But when I was there, people would come in from other fellowships and talk to us. And I didn't, the people that came there, I never heard one person that came to that hospital to talk to us that told me that they stole a TV to have a drink. So I couldn't identify with the people coming in. It's not that I didn't even have a tie to try to spill more on it than they did. My worldly possessions was a beach chair and a box that I turned upside down, that when I got into my abandonmenium, I would put my beach chair out and turn my box upside down for a table. And that's how I ended up. I couldn't identify feelings because I was emotionally crippled. I had no worldly possessions. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't even have any ID. And I went into this place. And when I was there, I met a guy. He came from California, and he had a white book. And his name was Roy Porter. And he was an enigma. He was different. He was a paranoid guy, but he had a mission, and he knew it. And he came east because his grandmother owned an elevator company, and he came to visit her, and he stayed. And he brought the white book east. And it changed the course of the history of my life, because it was something that I could sink my teeth into. It was something that I believed. And I had never met anybody else besides this guy, Roy, that I could identify with. And so, I went through the program of Eagleville, and at the end they had what was called a candidate program. And when you were a candidate, you were allowed out, but you had to come back. And so they trusted me to go out, and it was, I was good as long as I was in an institution. I mean, I had never done a year on the street from the time I was 13 till I was 22. I'd always been put away. So I guess that's being institutionalized. I don't know. What the fuck is it? But anyhow, that was my life. But at this place, it was like, what am I going to do when I get out? As long as I'm here, I'm okay. But once I leave here, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to everybody else here? Are we going to have to keep coming back forever? Because look, when I got clean, there was no detoxes. You couldn't go send somebody to a detox. There wasn't any rehabs. This place I was in wasn't even a rehab. It was an experiment. And so 6 people from this place that was in the candidate program, and I still remember all 6 names. It was Ralph Stewart. He has passed on. There was Carl W., Kenny C., Rich M., Bob Mick, and myself went to try to get a meeting someplace outside of Eagleville Hospital, and the closest town was Norristown. And they had there was 2 counselors that had a meeting, but it was kind of a therapy, another fellowship type of meeting, not a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. And that didn't work for what the people wanted, and we found this church at Green and Basin Street. And that was the first meeting outside of this place that I had gone to. Ralph and Rich have both passed on, and they went clean, and Ed went clean, and Bob went clean, and nobody knows where Kenny is, and Carl's doing okay, and I'm doing okay. So it worked. It was meant to be. But what happened from that meeting was there was a guy named Bill B., who I still see. He's got 40-some years, in Collegeville started a meeting. And then there was a guy, Bob Kay, from Phoenixville that started a meeting with Joe Kay. And then there were meetings trying to go in Philadelphia, but they didn't stick and stay. The meetings never lasted. And then I was coming up on a year. I had 362 days clean. And they were planning an anniversary for me. And the sneaky dog that I was, I says, man, I'm young. There's one more good time out there. And I thought that I could, when I went out for this candidate program, I ran into somebody who was using, and I knew was using, and he goes to me, he says, I'm holding. And I had no defense against it. And I started getting high again, and I couldn't go back to the place and act like I was clean, so I ran. And I was facing 55 years because I got caught at a bank that they thought I was trying to rob, and I got caught with a gun and other stuff, and anyhow, I had 55 years. So, when they say you can't scare an addict, you couldn't. And I was running, and I was such a tough guy that they came and found me hiding in my closet in my bedroom. The cool, collected gangster that I wasn't. I was hiding in the closet, and they took me back to Eagleville. And I went through the program again, and I went to court, and everybody from Eagleville went to court with me. And the judge said, I'm going to do you a solid. I'm going to spring you. And he says, but if you ever come back here, you're doing all 55 years. And like the director went, the therapy people went, the janitor went, the guy who cut the lawn went, they all went. And they stood for me because, when you're institutionalized, you can get along with everybody. And that's how I was. But I couldn't cut it on the outside. I didn't know how to live life on life's terms. I didn't know what life's on life's terms. I didn't lose anything from this disease. You understand that? I just never had a chance to get anywhere. It's the disease just took and took and took. And I wasn't going to hang around with nobody because when I was young, I used to wet the bed, and I knew that nobody would want me around once they found out. When I went to the juvenile home, all I did was fight because you wake up with wet sheets in the juvenile home, you're banging. And that's just the way that it was. But I liked it. I was institutionalized. I had no place else. I didn't know how to talk to people on the outside. I could jail. And that's what it was until I found Narcotics Anonymous. And then I was down in Ocean City, New Jersey, and I was yellow from hepatitis. And they thought that they were going to get a dead body, so they took me up to Frankfurt Hospital in Philadelphia, and they did a drive-by. Because what happened is they drove by and dumped me out of the car and kept going. Because at the entrance to Frankfurt Hospital, you could just do that. Some places like you got to drive up around to the emergency room. It wasn't like that. You could go right off the street and dump me out, and that's what they did. They left me there, and I woke up, and this guy, Roy P., was at the end of the bed. How the fuck did he even know I was there? But he knew. And this is the type of guy that he was. He would check hospitals. Because what happens when people stop going to meetings and stuff, we would read the obituaries. We would check hospitals. We would check the precincts. And he was there. And he was there the next day. And he gave me a copy of the White Book. And that was my most treasured possession. And I went back to the Green and Basin Street meeting. I'm back. And what happened was there was other meetings that were starting to happen. And I just fell in place. I mean, I remember, and I would go to as many meetings as I could because this guy, Roy, got me a place to live down in Fishtown in Philadelphia. That's... White Hood, that's what it was. That's where I had this place that I could live, and my goal when I got clean was to get on welfare, and I got on welfare, and I could pay my rent, and I could have a couple dollars to eat and smoke cigarettes. And so, but I had no life. I was unemployable. I didn't have any job skills. My vocabulary was still, yo, motherfucker, who's holding, where can I cop? Who's got the best stuff? What I got to do to get it? You down? You know, so you take all that, you put it together, you get it just coming off of drugs. So I did the next best thing. We started playing spades to 10,000. Because when you play spades at 10,000, you have no life. And but you know, I didn't know what else to do. And we had a black and white TV. Somebody else had a TV that flipped. Ours didn't flip. It just showed black and white. And so we had gotten enough money to get a telephone, and we got the first NA helpline, and it was right next to the spades table. You know, like if we had gotten a lot of calls, we could just not have to move our hands and just answer the phone. But we didn't get many calls. We didn't have any calls. The number was 276-2703. That was the first helpline on the East Coast. And so it was right next to the spades table in the kitchen. And we never left. Because we had no life. Everybody was on welfare. All 6 of us living in the house. Everybody was unemployable. But we went to meetings. Nobody had a driver's license. And then when I had about 3, you got to understand this. I was an old timer with 2 weeks. You know, like, well, Dutch has got clean. He's clean 2 weeks. And I remember this guy. And he had escaped from Eastern Penitentiary, right? Charlie G. I'll never forget the guy. He says, you know what? Fuck this. I'm getting high. I chased him down the street. You can't. And that's how it was. And so, you know, we started meetings. We had a meeting at 13th and Ruscombe. We had a meeting at 10th and the Boulevard. We had a meeting at Byberry Hospital. You know, we had the Norristown, Collegeville, and Phoenixville meeting. We had a meeting at 7th and Moore. You know what? We arrived and we had NA every night of the week. We were home. And we didn't know about getting any literature. We didn't have no predecessors. We didn't know anybody was in California. We knew this guy, Roy, and he was crazy. You know, so we made copies of the White Book. And we made more copies. And we made more and more and more and more. And I remember I had 3 months. I got my first job. I was with the roofers, and I made $12 a day. And but I didn't have anything to spend it on, so the money accumulated, and I got a truck for $200, and I got a driver's license. And we were going to meetings. You know, and it was kind of comical, but that's how it was. And then something happened to change my life. We had a guy, he was like the class clown of NA. You know, you ever meet somebody that's a joke a minute? That's how this guy was. And he went out and he started using again. And we get a telephone call from the 24th and 25th precinct. And all right, we'll come and we'll get down there. And we finished our spades game. And we took our time. Stopped and got ice cream, I remember. I bet he's shitting himself waiting for us. And when we got to the precinct, they said we cut him down 10 minutes ago. And he had hung himself. And I never got over the guilt. And his name was Jimmy Karinga. And the rest of my life has been trying to get rid of the guilt that you can make a difference. by answering the phone, by taking some action. And you know, I had an H&I commitment for like 16 years. The first time I tried to do it was where my friends were. And then after the third meeting, I told the warden, I said, you know what, we need like coffee, milk, cookies, you know. And he says, well, you won't be coming back here. And that was it. You know, because, you know, when you got clean, you kind of had this little false sense of entitlement. And that's what it was. And, you know, so I stayed involved, starting meetings. When we had 10 meetings, we started something called intergroup because we didn't know what to call it. And there was a representative from every meeting, and we met at Friends Hospital. And we just tried to, like, figure out what we were doing because we really didn't know. And then we had started, we finally started getting literature from California. And I remember when we first started getting it, wow, isn't this neat? So, and then we kept trying to get literature, and then we sent somebody out there, Bob Kay, and we paid for his plane ticket. And we got a postcard 4 months later. Thanks for the ticket to LA, living in Venice and playing basketball and got a girlfriend. And we got no information as to what happened. You know, but what had happened was we had, you know, I guess persevered, and these intergroup meetings or area service was fun. They were full of drama, full of chaos. I don't think I was at the one that John was talking about today where somebody punched somebody. But I know that there was, you know, you got a room full of emotional cripples trying to figure out what to do next. And that's where we were. And we didn't have anybody say, well, what should we do? Because we didn't know anybody who knew what to do. And that's how it was. And so what happened was, then we heard, well, they're starting a rehabilitation center up in Williamsport, a place called White Deer Run. Let's go up there and get some meetings. And so we would drive 180 miles up, and we started a meeting at Divine Providence, and we started a meeting in Lewisburg, and I forget the other place where we had one. There was 3 meetings up there. And the people from there would come down to this intergroup thing, and we would go up there, and we would drive 3 times a week up to Williamsport to these meetings, 180 miles up and 180 miles back. And how we did it with people on welfare and nobody working, but we got it done. Our first get-together of any kind of event was held in a junkyard, and we had it catered. Up in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. But you got to understand, when we would ask to, like, can we have a dance at your church? Who is this? Narcotics Anonymous? Thank you. No. And that's how it was. You know, and we tried to ride on another 12-step fellowship's coattails to get meetings. But when we would go and do a follow-up with the churches, they would tell us, well, sorry, but somebody from another fellowship said that you would drink our wine and rob our Kotex machines. and so we didn't have a lot of luck of getting places, of having meetings. And so there was meetings in the Philadelphia area and around Eagleville Hospital. Then there was meetings up around White Deer Run. And then they were going to open a meeting up on, I think it was Street Road, this place, Today Incorporated. I think they're both dead. Jack Moore and Ardell Schultz was up there, and they let us have a meeting there. And it was like, whoa, we're in the suburbs now. Like, we're moving on up. And that's how it was. And so what happened, this meeting took off. And it stayed. And then people started calling us from other cities. Like, how do you guys do this? I don't know, but we'll help you. And a couple people would go here, a couple people would go there. And it just started to blossom. And basically what it was, and I heard it earlier, it was, I just wanted to see other addicts. It wasn't so much about recovery because we didn't know how to work steps. We would work steps as a group. And I can remember, and somebody reminded me today of a guy that wrote an article, 20 questions or something. When he did his 5th step, it was a packed house. Because this guy was whacked. And I remember this meeting was filled, like, why is everybody here? And then I found out why, because this guy was really nuts. And he told it like he was nuts. And he had no shame in his game or nothing, just let it all out. And other than that, the biggest meetings was when a female was going to do a 5th step. Because nobody, you got to understand this, nobody knew anything about sponsorship because, look, the same people went to the same meeting, so you're not going to get them to sponsor you because you hate, it's a love-hate thing. You're seeing the same people every night in the same clothes half the time. So there was no, this guy can't help me. Or this guy's going to take my inventory. I hear him talking about everybody else. I know he's talking about me. Fuck that. I'm not going to ask him to help me. And that's part of the history that at the time was alive and well. And that's not how it is today. And, I like that display case downstairs in the archives room. It was like, whoa. It's like taking you back through it. But NA has come. The flame is lit. And no, I don't think anybody from the early days, and Dave's in the back, and I think John Farrell's here, and George is here, and Al's here, and Danny's here. Nobody wants any recognition or anything that anybody did anything special. It was like they said, there's other addicts. We want to meet you. We want to love you even though we don't know how to love ourselves. We want to check you out. We want to see if we want to do you. That's honest. NA grew on sex and resentment. Don't get it fucked up. Don't think it was because it was spiritual. It didn't. It wasn't like that. And so what happened, this intergroup, there was a mid-Atlantic region. And it went from, I guess, the whole East Coast. And we went out to the World Service Conference. And we saw we was outnumbered. Big. It wasn't even David against Goliath. It was like an ant against Goliath. So what had happened was there was a lot of turmoil going on in California with some people. There seemed to be different factions going on. And we really didn't know the ins and outs of it on the East Coast. We just knew that we had more people, it seemed, on the East Coast recovering than what we were seeing when we went to meetings on the West Coast. And I had talks with people out there, and then somebody said, well, the Mecca of recovery, Southern California. Wrong person to tell it to. The Mecca. All right. There was some changes that was getting ready to happen. You dig what I'm saying? Anyhow, I was out there we wrote a book in Philadelphia called Living Clean. And John Farrell, I don't think he's here now, I don't see him, but he was our editor because he was a college professor. Like everybody else was a street person, but John Farrell was a professor, and we could respect his editing skills. And we just agreed with him because nobody else knew where to put the comma. Yeah, John did. And you know, so this was 1982. And it was the big drama where the basic text got passed. And the next year I got elected to be the RSR alternate for the greater Philadelphia region because we had broke off of Mid-Atlantic. And then the people that was involved with that, their lives really got crazy because when other regions started to break away from the Mid-Atlantic, they said, how'd you do it? Now, I don't know how we did it. We just did it. And we got a representative, and we went to California, and we started to even out the votes. And that's what it was. It was political. And that, you know, the game was going to change. And because John had talked about those young, kick-ass, get-it-done type of guys on the East Coast. I was one of them. And we were going to get it done. And we did get it done. And I don't care where anybody goes in the world today, they know that there's a presence on the East Coast. And it's alive and well, and it's got a lot of good recovery, and there's a lot of good people. But what had happened at that time back then was there was a lot of political things that went on that a lot of people on the East Coast really didn't know. It was infighting with people on the West Coast. But my sponsor was on the West Coast, Bob Raymar. And he was the chairman of the conference that year. And there was all this stuff going on with Jimmy. And I got a little bit of a personal history with Jimmy. And the old timers in Southern California. And not much because it wasn't my cup of tea. I'm not a political scientist, you know what I mean? Let's get it done and fuck the politics. There's addicts dying, do you know what I mean? I don't care who's in charge, but somebody better get in charge because it wasn't getting done. Now, there's some stuff chronicled that somebody broke into the old World Service office and moved everything. And they flew into LAX and rented a Lincoln Continental and picked up their sponsor and went to the Sun Valley office and broke into it and moved everything. And we left the door open. I know some people's going to be pissed, but I'm here to tell you the truth. And that's the truth. And it's written and it's chronicled. And at that time, some people felt it needed to be done, and I was one of them. And there was a lot of people on the East Coast that felt we needed a change. And the change came. Some people didn't like it. Some people still don't like it. You know, they still bitch about it. Move on. You know what I mean? NA is here to stay, whether you like it or not. Who gives a fuck who's in charge? Let's just get it done. It's not about who's in charge, who's laid down for history. You know, we respect, what's that word, predecessors, AJ? Whatever that is. Look, we respect it, but you know what? We earned the right to carry a message, and we're damn well going to do it. So every region that was on the East Coast, the people that was involved, we didn't want to do it. Look, I lost a whole family. I got divorced because I couldn't say no to NA. I was taught never to say no. And you know, at the time I felt it was terrible, but looking back, I'm glad. You know, because I'm not somebody that's good with dealing with internal combustion. You know, and so I went to the conference in '83, and John Farrell got elected policy chair, and I got elected to the board of trustees. And I asked Sally Evans, I said, Sally, what's a board of trustee member doing? She goes, I don't know. And I knew we were fucked. Because the numbers was growing exponentially without a basic text on the East Coast. There was meetings in Florida. There was meetings in Georgia. There was meetings in the Carolinas. There was meetings in Virginia. There was meetings in Maryland. There was meetings in Jersey, Pennsylvania. New York was starting to happen. And so as the RSR alternate of the Greater Philadelphia region, they voted not to accept the basic text. So when it came time for everybody to get their basic text at the end of the conference, I told Jimmy, and Jimmy was giving them out. I said, I can't take them. My region voted against it. And he took me to school. He says, look, Dutch, let me tell you something. We've had our differences. And he says, but you need to surrender to the conscience here. What happens here, your region needs to listen to. So I took the books back to the Greater Philadelphia region. Their first order of business when I went back was to impeach me. Because I didn't listen to what they had voted for. I didn't listen. And I voted what Jimmy said that was policy now. And moving on, a few months later, the Impossible Dream happened. And Rose was a big part of it. A lot of us from Philly. We would have fundraisers in New York and have more people from Philly at the fundraiser in New York than people from New York. We would have 3,000 people. You dig what I'm saying? Over 2,000 of them were from Philly that started to believe in this thing. We were starting to get a wave. 2,000 people to dance at the old Electric Circus on St. Mark's. Crazy. They just showed up. And this guy Bobby, who we had a prayer for earlier, he was a big part of it. Me and Bobby were like inseparable back then. And whatever it took, by any means necessary. But it got done. And when Jimmy came to the World Convention, he made amends to me. And that he didn't feel that Southern California was the Mecca of recovery anymore. That he couldn't believe the numbers that were happening, standing room only, in every meeting at the World Convention in New York. The impossible dream. It was impossible, but it happened. It got pulled off by a bunch of street people. There wasn't one college degree that had anything to do with putting that convention on. It was a group of us learning how to love ourselves, learning how to put other people first. And let me tell you something from my perspective. The World Convention in New York City was a game changer for all of NA. Not just the East Coast. Because North Jersey and South Jersey started to mend after the impossible dream in New York City. The regions on the East Coast started to attend other people's conventions. Conventions started to show up all over the place. There were committees being formed all over the place. If New York can do it, anybody can do it. But New York had a lot of support from a lot of people outside because I'll tell you what, and I love this guy, Tony Daddio. I was talking about him today coming up. Tony was trying to get these cookies out of his trunk, and I ran, first time I ever met him. And he says, "Who are you?" I says, "I'm Dutch." He said, "Where are you from?" I says, "From Jersey." And he says, "You an addict?" I said, "Yeah, I'm an addict." He says, "How long are you clean?" I said, 10 years. He said, "Nobody's 10 years. Shut the fuck up." And that's how we met. That's how we came to love each other. And that's how we pulled for each other. And this is something that doesn't have to do with the people in my own backyard. I saw forces of people doing things for people they're never going to see. The most spiritual thing you can do for somebody else is do it because you're never going to see them. And you do the best you can and you leave the results to God. And God was in our corner. Profound impact on what people saw that they could do. Maryland got together. I took the basic text that Philly said that they were going to impeach me with because I brought them back when the region told me not to. Their books cost $25. We sold them for $50 each as a fundraiser for the World Convention and gave them the money. Because you know what? They were grateful. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And it worked. But it happened. And you know what? That's a proud moment for people that were involved with it on the East Coast. You know, and then after that, the world just took off. Chicago had it the year after. Bam! Big numbers. D.C. after that, bigger numbers. London after that, bigger numbers. New Orleans, the best convention town in the world. Bigger numbers. And at the same time, the East Coast was having conventions. It started in Bucknell University, then it went to Trenton, then it went to Pittsburgh, then it went to Moravian College, then Yale to jail. Then it went to D.C., then it went to Bloomsburg, then it went to Kent State. The same amount of people were at the East Coast conventions that were at the world conventions back then. And the East Coast is back. And everything that happens with the East Coast today goes to buy basic text for inmates. Because what they found was that areas and regions don't have the fund flow to get them there. And this is just a vehicle to help. That's what it is. And it's a low-key, really nice convention. And intimate. You know, and this year it's going to be in Jersey. So, you know, the thing is that the stories that people have, you know, and as far as the history, I don't think anybody wants the rock around their neck that they're a predecessor. I don't. I want to be an addict. I don't want to be unapproachable. Do you know what I mean? I've heard that before, like, "Oh, I thought you were unapproachable." Huh? Fuck. What do I got to do? I've been to jail 17 times clean. So I'm not a role model. And when I did my last 10 days, this is how I know I'm still institutionalized. I felt bad leaving because who do I give my toilet paper to? I got to say goodbye to my spades partner, my pinochle partner. I'm not going to watch Jerry Springer twice a day. I'm not going to trade soup for Jell-O. Yeah, I'm institutionalized. And I can stay clean on the outside now. You know, and my life is good. Like I said in the beginning, I'm struggling with stuff today because I'm powerless. And I want to be the daddy that can fix. Do you know what I mean? And right now, I can't, and it's a tough one for me. Because I love my kids. I mean, like, fuck with my kids, you bring the fucking lion out in me. And I can't do nothing. And I prayed more today than I have in a long time. But, you know, that's what we got to do. And I remember I was outside and I told AJ, I'm feeling vulnerable. And I told one of my sponsees, I'm feeling vulnerable. I don't got it. I don't feel it. I don't want to go speak. And AJ said, all you can do is pray for him. And he hugged me. And Sean said, I got you. You'll be okay. But it's one of them things, this is bigger than me. And, my whole thing is I just want to help people if I can. I don't want a star after my name. I can't help it. My name's Dutch, and I'm from Jersey, because a lot of people say, Dutch from Jersey? There's one Dutch from Jersey. But a lot of people know of me, but they don't know me. They've heard the name Dutch. They've heard that he's from Jersey. I'm from Florida now, too. I like it down there. But the whole thing is that we do what we need to do. Once you believe the last paragraph of the fifth tradition, you got it. And the whole key is allowing a spiritual transformation to happen. Because when I came in here, all I knew how to do was love things and use people. And I'm not a rocket scientist, and all I had was a willingness to go to meetings. Partly because I'm a lonely guy that likes hanging out and talking shit. So NA was like a social event for me for a long time. These people are crazy. But it got me to be around long enough to want to do some work on myself, because I got tired of the pain. I got tired of handcuffs. I got tired of feeling lonely. I got tired of being married and feeling like I'm the only one in the house. You dig what I'm saying? You ever been like that? Hooked up in a relationship, but ain't nobody else there? But they're there, but you don't feel it. And you move off of it because you don't want to engage, because you don't know how to engage, because you feel inadequate, you feel insecure. That's me. I'm an addict. I'm like you. I've been clean longer than some because I don't have any place else to go. This is the last stop on the train for me. And I see these commercials on TV. Like, one looks like a real nice place. It's like out in Santa Monica, and it's got like a mansion and a swimming pool. And the guy used to be an addict, you know what I mean? But he's not anymore. And I'm going like, fuck, they make it look good. Now, when are they going to tell the other side of the story? But everybody's perceptions are on. I tried whatever I could do to take a shortcut with this. I substituted everything you can substitute. Now, I live near Atlantic City, so gambling's one of them. Let's throw that in there. Let's throw sex in there. I hit everything I could. Not proud of it, just stating a fact. In the name of service, or in the name of recovery, whatever the fuck I had to say. You know what I mean? That's just the truth. Pornography, food, never clothes. I'm not a fashion GQ guy. Not cars or anything, but trucks. I like a truck. And tools, work tools. I'm a tool whore. You know what I mean? I got to have nice tools to do what I do. I still finish concrete. And I got to say this. I lived up in the Bronx from 86 to 88. And I used to go to, Tony told me I had to make Back to Life my home group. So I went on Morris Park Avenue to Back to Life. And I raised my hand and nobody called on me for like 3 months. Because I wasn't from the Bronx. But I was attracted to the meeting. It was a lure there, and it broke my heart because 65% of the people there had the virus. And back then, when you had the virus, there wasn't a lot of hope. And even though, like, I've held a lot of service positions and been elected to a lot of things, like at the conference, and I was asked to be involved in this thing and that thing. When they elected me chairperson of Back to Life, up in the Bronx, with 65 of the people with no hope. That's one of my most precious possessions in Narcotics Anonymous. That they would take an outsider like me, allow me in, and to get next to them. When I drove by, I used to get off at Pelham Parkway. And when I drove by there today, I said, it hit me like, wow, I love that place. I feel a connection there. And I've always felt a connection with New York. But the whole thing is anything that I've been a part of, I never knew what I was doing. When I first got clean, I didn't know how to be a GSR. I didn't know what I was doing. When I became the ASR for the Shore area, I didn't know how to be one. When I was the RSR for Philadelphia, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to be one. When I went to California, I didn't know how to be a trustee. I was the liaison to AA. I was the international trustee. I was the finance trustee. I was the H&I trustee for 2 years. I didn't know how to be it. But let me set the record straight on this. And don't get this fucked up. I've been in a couple meetings today where I heard about this baby blue and how it originated. Now, the people that said that weren't there. Let's get that straight. I was there. So now I'm going to tell you the truth. In 1987, the World H&I Committee brought a motion onto the conference floor. And we only took motions onto the conference floor if it was unanimous from the whole World H&I Committee. That we would have books without the stories so we could get more in the institutions at a cheaper price. Because at this time, the H&I can had been removed, if anybody's old enough to remember the H&I can. Because you couldn't specifically earmark funds for a certain purpose. So there was a void. And what this motion was to help carry the message to addicts without the stories. Well, Bob Stone went on the conference floor and he said that it wasn't economically feasible. Why? I don't know. Less words. Less paper. Something about different plates. The fuck you mean different plates? Put the 103 pages in and let the fucking stories go. Now, the World H&I Committee surrendered to that group conscience and never brought it up again. People who wanted to do what the conference said not to, took it on themselves to print the basic text without the stories. That thought process came from World H&I, not from any individual, not from a group of individuals other than the 1987 World Convention H&I, or World Conference H&I Committee. And I was the H&I trustee to that. And we thought long and hard before we presented a motion, because I'm going to tell you the politics of the World Service Conference. You don't present a motion on the floor of the World Service Conference unless you got a pretty good goddamn idea it's going to get passed. because you don't want to deal with the bullshit. And it got shot down. So we surrendered like good addicts. And we didn't bring it up again the following year. Other people did. Individuals that felt like it was a good idea. People can do whatever they want. I surrendered to it. And I never went about it anymore. But that's the original. That's how the baby blue came to be born. Not, it was brought in this state, it was brought in that state, it was this state, that state. No, it was at the World Service Conference in 1987. It got shot down, and the World H&I Committee laid down and surrendered to that group conscience. Whoever picked it up from there, that's where the idea came from. So you do with that information whatever you want, but that's the truth behind baby blue. And whether you like it or not, or whether it's anybody's camp, I don't give a fuck, but that's the truth. Because I like NA more than I like anybody in this goddamn room. Let's get that straight. Don't get that fucked up. So, anyhow, I just wanted to pass that on. All right? So now, back to this whole thing about the history of NA, the history of the East Coast, the history of the world. I'm going to tell you what I can tell you from being active for 41 years. And I believe this, the more you're clean, the longer you're clean, the more you got to give back. You can't coast. I've seen too many people with time go out. You can't sit back. Well, I got 30 large, motherfucker. I got a quarter of a century. I'm coming up on 50. 50. I think you got to do more. The disease progresses. I got to pay it forward more. I got to do more for people that I'm never going to see. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to do it. But I need to stay willing. I need to get me out of the way. And sometimes I don't know how to do that. The last couple days has been rough for me because I'm obsessed with this thing with my daughters. But that'll move on. And we'll get through it. You know, and this whole thing is if you're new, do it till it starts to become alive inside of you. And what happens in step 3, you'll still only know how to love things and use people. But if you become willing, and that's all you need is the willingness, God will put the people in your life to get you to step 11 where the spiritual transformation will take place, because you'll be able to take an inventory. You'll be able to work on defects. You'll realize that you're going to come up short because you're a human being. You're going to be able to make a list and make amends. You're going to start to get some emotional courage where you can promptly admit when you're wrong. And then comes the omega part. You're going to have the ability to love people where they're at, not where you want them to be. Because you're going to have the ability to love people and use things. And that's the spiritual transformation that happened to me. And if it can happen to a fuck up like me, it can happen to anybody in this room. And all I did was become willing, because I don't know how to do nothing else. I tried everything else to get a shortcut. I'm the type of person, I want to do the least and get a still pass. That's how I was in school. Oh, you got so much potential. D-. Oh, you're so good at this. C. Well, that's not bad. You know, and that's the way it was. And that's how I started with my recovery. What happened when I got Bob Raymar as my sponsor, I broke down every word in the steps, and I got a dictionary, and I worked my balls off for a lot of years. Not just, my life got worse once I started writing the steps. I came back from California and say Dutch was in a mental institution. He's crazy. He wants us to write. Nobody ever said anything about writing. Not even anybody on the East Coast who was in AA said anything about writing. Dutch comes back from California. Yeah, we're going to write. All my sponsees left but one. And that's how it was. You know, but look, I'm still here. They're still here. People come in and out of your life, you know, for a reason to get you to the next phase. Don't take nothing personal with people like us, because, you know, it's principles before the personalities. Don't let the personalities play you out of position. And I don't have nothing else to say. I'm an addict named Dutch. And I love you. I love you. You dig what I'm saying?